Om Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today we're going to attempt to finish our discussion of Madhavendra Puri's Ecstatic Love. And as we mentioned last week, the subject of ecstatic love or intense love for Krishna may seem so far beyond us, but we need to hear about it because this is our aspiration. This is our hope. This is what forms the core of our being. Perhaps if you use the example of a 5-year-old child hearing about persons who go to the university, it seems so inconceivable to a child in Hindi or in his or her first year. How can anyone go to the university? Such a child can't even conceive of high school or secondary school. Maybe you can remember as a little school child, 7, 8, 9 years old, you couldn't even conceive of what it was like to go to high school. It seems so far beyond your scope and reach. What to speak of university when you're 7, 8, or 9? You think, I know some persons are going to the uni, but what could it be like? But as everyone knows, if you stick to the path of mundane education, gradually one level leads to the next level. And indeed, you wind up at the university. So let us not consider these subject matters of intense love for Krishna to be so far beyond us that hearing about them is impractical. No, everything in Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is practical, applied spiritual technology. And as I explained last week, by hearing about these topics, something transforms in your heart. And gradually over time, the heart becomes tender. The heart becomes soft, not in a mundane way. This is explained in Nectar of Devotion. And you see a summary of Nectar of Devotion in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, where Lord Chaitanya is instructing Srila Rupa Goswami. We may, if we have time, get into this subject today of what is a tender heart? What is a soft heart? It's not what you may think in the ordinary sense. Let's first, however, look at Sri Madhavendra Puri. Even though he appeared before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was not present in this world at the same time as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The secret and confidential realizations that Lord Chaitanya would demonstrate were impregnated in the heart of Madhavendra Puri, preceding the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, therefore, the Shastra explains that the confidential, intense love demonstrated by Lord Chaitanya first was implanted in Madhavendra Puri and then transferred to Ishwar Puri, who then gave that seed of ecstatic love to Lord Chaitanya, and there that seed sprouted into a tree, the Prema Kalpataru, the desire tree of pure love of Krishna. I think many of you know the narrative of Madhavendra Puri's transcendental adventures as presented in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'd like to try to focus today on not simply the narrative or the storyline of his dealing with Gopal deity, the Gopinath deity. I'd like to focus on the interaction between Lord Chaitanya and his devotees. As Lord Chaitanya presents the glorious love of Madhavendra Puri, and you're going to see that this history of Madhavendra Puri culminates in Lord Chaitanya's speaking the confidential verse spoken by Madhavendra Puri. And Lord Chaitanya savors that verse. In fact, that verse transports Lord Chaitanya into visible, in other words, all the associates, all his associates could see him transported into confidential love of Krishna. Believe it or not, our bhakti practice is meant to take us to intense love of Krishna. We have the opportunity to develop that by our devotional service. Attachment to devotional service means attachment for Krishna. And in the history of Madhavendra Puri, you read about his intense attachment to service. What he did at Govardhan Hill was miraculous. Staging an installation of the Gopal deity on top of Govardhan Hill in just one day. So he wasn't simply a sadhu in seclusion. While absorbed in ecstatic love for Krishna, he organized service to Krishna. So much so that villagers from other places would all come and take a slot on the roster for serving Sri Gopalaji. It wasn't simply those in the village. where Madhavendra Puri found the Gopal deity. No, the news spread so quickly, and persons from other villages wanted to also perform the Annakuta ceremony of offering so much food to the deity, offering all kinds of articles for the deity's pleasure, even cows, so that the deity had a private herd of thousands of cows. In this way, the maintenance of the deity puja, the deity worship, was secured just by the deities possessing land and cows. So let's think about this point. That ecstatic love of Krishna is shown in the actions of Madhavendra Puri. But meanwhile, amidst those extraordinary endeavors, you would see him break out in ecstatic symptoms while chanting and dancing in front of the deity. The question was raised last week. Why didn't Madhavendra Puri recognize Krishna when Krishna came to him as a young cowherd boy to offer him food, to offer him milk to drink? And then later, that same cowherd boy appeared to Madhavendra Puri in a dream and said, I'm the deity hidden in the bush. Please dig me out and serve me. And as you know, at that point, Madhavendra Puri, when he awakened, realized that was Krishna who came to me as a cowherd boy and offered me milk and told me no one goes hungry in his village. Oh, I saw him and I didn't recognize him. So the question is raised. Why didn't Madhavendra Puri recognize him? Krishna is the controller of our perception, and he knows how to increase our love. We're not the supreme controllers of our perception. Then again, due to Madhavendra Puri's ecstatic love, when is he not seeing Krishna? But the paradox is that such a devotee on that level thinks, I'm not actually having Krishna's presence. Out of humility, such a devotee thinks that way. Where is Krishna? And also, it's a fact that Krishna appears and disappears to increase the devotee's feelings of separation. And in those feelings of love in separation, the devotee is actually seeing Krishna. In fact, this is the pinnacle, the topmost jewel of bhakti, love in separation, in which the devotee is actually more present with Krishna through feelings of separation than in meeting with Krishna. This is the mystery of Vipralamba Seva, love in separation. You may recall when Krishna is explaining to the gopis why he left them. He said, don't be angry with me. Why shouldn't you be angry with me? I had your best interests at heart, in other words. I know how to increase the love for me. When someone has something so precious and loses it, that person never stops thinking about what was lost. And you may recall Krishna explaining that when apparently I was away from you as you searched the forest for me, I was watching you from an undisclosed place, watching your ecstasy and separation. So, in other words, Krishna is telling the gopis, I know what I'm doing. Krishna is all about love, so much so that he becomes conquered by his devotees' love. And you see in the service of Sri Madhavendra Puri how Krishna is reciprocating with that love. What I'd like to go to next is Lord Chaitanya speaking to Nityananda Prabhu and other devotees about Madhavendra Puri's service. Mahaprabhu is himself reviewing the devotional service of Madhavendra Puri. This is how much the Supreme Personality of Godhead relishes the service of his pure devotees. He wants to tell others about it. He wants to become subordinate to that. He wants to increase it. We'll go to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 4, text 170. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally praised the nectarian characteristics of Madhavendra Puri. And while he related all this to the devotees, he personally relished it. We can begin to get a tiny glimpse of Lord Chaitanya's relishing the service of his devotees by our always wanting to glorify the service of other devotees. Just look what they're doing. How do they get these abilities? How do they get such enthusiasm, such determination? We want to glorify Krishna, and believe it or not, Krishna wants to glorify his devotees. Remember how Madhavendra Puri became famous in Remuna, that town, because of the Gopinath deity having stolen sweet rice for him? Madhavendra Puri knew when the word gets out, I'll be famous. Persons will try to see me. I'll become a celebrity. I don't want that. And so before everyone awakened, he left town and went to Jagannath Puri. Bhakti yogis have to always be careful about the desire for becoming well known, famous. What plagues a devotee on the way to Krishna is not simply material desire like lust, but that lust manifests as the desire. It also manifests as the desire for pad, profit, adoration, and distinction. One example given is of an umbrella, a heavy umbrella. When you hoist such a heavy umbrella over your head, you certainly feel relief from the hot sun or the pouring rain. So, yes, when finally you are recognized and you've achieved some notoriety, some fame, some distinction, some adoration, Finally, I'm noticed. Finally, everyone realizes how special I am. At last, they've awakened. They've snapped out of their coma and they recognize me. All I've done, all I can do. So, this is like the relief you get from the sun or the rain when you hoist over your head a very weighty umbrella. At first, you don't mind that it's a weighty umbrella because you want the relief. But you soon discover that carrying that umbrella is a struggle. So, similarly, the example tells us that getting recognition, getting fame provides some temporary relief, but to maintain your fame and celebrity status is such hard work. You always have to worry, is my reputation decreasing, increasing? Mm. I remember the example of one of the co-founders, the two co-founders of PayPal, used all over the world. He, both of the co-founders were young men in their 20s in Silicon Valley, and they hit the jackpot. They developed PayPal and then sold their company for millions upon millions of dollars. So you saw the picture of this young man. He was in his 20s. He had like a crown on his head, a big cigar in his mouth. People around him were just worshiping him, looking at him with starstruck eyes. Wow, you're in your 20s and you're a multi millionaire. When we have our retreats for young Indian students and professionals in Melbourne, so nicely arranged by Nityananda Priya Prabhu, Gopavindesh Prabhu, and others. I sometimes show this video clip of this young man. He had it made. He told an interviewer, yeah, I sold the company for, well, you can understand that I did pretty good. He was trying to be modest, but it was many millions of dollars. And then in subsequent interviews, especially the year after his extraordinary good fortune, he told that the year since, the 12 months that passed since I sold the company, were the most miserable in my life. I was so depressed. Why? Because I had to come up with another idea. I had to come up with another great achievement. He said, I don't want to be just one and done. I don't want to be known as one of those guys who did something extraordinary one time and that's it for the life. I'll just be filed away in a file cabinet as a one hit wonder. Oh no, I don't want that. And I was so depressed. So you would think, well, wait a minute. You struck it rich, multimillionaire. many times over in your 20s. His girlfriend was interviewed at their flat, and she just said, I never see him. He's never home. And then the, the interview flashes to the young man at his office. And there he is trying to sketch some new software idea on the blackboard while munching on a hamburger at the same time. And he can't even eat lunch peacefully. He can't eat his abominable lunch. He just, and then the camera flashes back to the flat where his girlfriend is. And, never see him. I wish we would have some quality time together. So you think, well, this guy had it all. He had it all. He has it all. Yes, he has everything except peace of mind and contentment of heart. He's carrying that heavy umbrella of fame, which he explained so appropriately. I don't want to be known as one of those guys who just has a great success one time and that's it for the rest of my life. Oh, just the thought depresses me. This is the illusory world of fame. So Madhavendra Puri he didn't want a bar of that. He left town. I don't want persons glorifying me as being such a great devotee that the Gopinath deity stole sweet rice and reserved it just for me. People are going to find out. They're going to come looking for me in the morning. I'm out of here. So he went to Jagannath Puri. But Chaitanya Charitamrita points out that if Krishna wants, the fame of the devotee will follow, no matter where you go. And that's what happened when he got to Puri. He couldn't get away from his fame. Krishna knows what's best for us. Sometimes Krishna wants his devotee to be famous, and sometimes not. Take in our Guru Parampara, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Externally, he was illiterate, yet he was the spiritual master of the greatest Vaishnav scholar, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, to avoid persons coming to him for material benedictions. What did he do? He made his residence in an abandoned latrine because he knew, even today in India, if people think, let me approach a saintly person for some material benediction, got nothing to lose, and it might work. You never know. So why not? It's our tradition anyway. So give it a go. So Gorka Shordas Babaji knew that this would happen. He knew persons were trying to do this. So he situated himself in an abandoned latrine or commode. Now, if you've been to India, you know what a regular latrine, public latrine or commode looks like. What to speak of an abandoned one? But Gorka Shordas Babaji, a Paramahansa, beyond any material conceptions, made his home there just so that persons wouldn't bother him in his bhajan. They wouldn't bother him for material benedictions. So sometimes Krishna wants his devotee to be famous and sometimes not. And the devotee doesn't hanker for recognition. He hankers for the opportunity to serve Krishna. So in Madhavendra Puri's case, fame for having the deity, the fame for the deities having stolen sweet rice for him, circulated in spite of Madhavendra Puri's intentions. What we want to focus on now is Lord Chaitanya presenting the history of Madhavendra Puri's service to Nityananda and asking Nityananda, have you ever seen anyone in the world this fortunate? Oh, if we could just have a speck of that attention from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he reviews our service. We were speaking on Lord Nrsinga's appearance day about something Sanatana Goswami in his commentary in Brihad Bhagavatamrita mentions about Prahlad Maharaj. And this statement is mentioned actually to devotees in general, but Prahlad Maharaj particularly demonstrates this point. I think I'll read it to you. This is in reference to a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, ninth canto, chapter 4, text 64. Naham atmanam asase mad bhaktai sadhubir vina shriyam atyantikim ta vapi yesham gatir aham para. Without saintly persons for whom I am the only destination, I am not attracted to my own self or to my supreme consort, the goddess Sri. One reason why the Supreme Lord speaks like this is that although his eternal associates, Sankarshan, Mahalakshmi, and so on, are ever established in unswerving devotion, they underwent no tribulations to gain it, whereas his so-called new devotees in the material world have sacrificed all comforts and security to gain pure devotional service. For the trouble such devotees have taken, Lord Krishna is especially grateful. Besides this, the Lord wants to encourage all his devotees to surrender themselves more fully. And to accomplish this, he emphatically praises devotees like Prahlad, who have taken great risks for his satisfaction. So here you see the personality of Godhead is declaring that so called recent devotees, as compared to his eternally established devotees like Mahalakshmi, these so called recent devotees are more dear to him. Why? Because the Vaikuntha, the eternally established Vaikunthites, they don't have to go through any trials and tribulations and ordeals. So please think about this. Sometimes we have the feeling that Krishna is not paying any attention to me, or Krishna's abandoned me, or I have to go through so many ordeals and tribulations in trying to serve Krishna. This material world is a place full of impediments. The material body is an impediment in of itself. I've got so many things I have to deal with. Does Krishna notice? Yet, we're hearing in Brihad Bhagavatamrita that Krishna does notice and he relishes our attempts to please him no matter what the situation. There's another concern raised in reference to Prahlad Maharaj. Sanatana Goswami explains that Hiranyakashipu's acquiring such inconceivable power, materially inconceivable, such power might discourage devotees like, well, such a demon, and he became so powerful. So to offset that, the Supreme Personality of Godhead glorifies Prahlad and says how Prahlad is the example for all devotees. Otherwise, you would think, well, this demoniac materialist Hiranyakashipu had it all. What's the point in becoming a bhakta if Hiranyakashipu achieves such material benedictions and those material benedictions make our little devotional service seem so inconsequential? To keep us from thinking like that and just see how considerate Krishna is. To keep us from thinking like that, Krishna demonstrates through Prahlad Maharaj the incomparable existence of a devotee. So now Lord Chaitanya is presenting to Nityananda Prabhu the glories of Madhavendra Puri. As we said, a review of Madhavendra Puri's service. In case you know someone who's had the experience of almost leaving their body, they often describe a phenomenon known as a life review. The last devotee who told me this a few weeks ago was Prana Prabhu. Those of you from Auckland remember Prana Prabhu. He lives in Melbourne now. And as all our bodies will, his body is giving various impediments. So he was describing how once, when it seemed he was about to leave his body, at that moment, his whole life passed before his eyes, so to speak, the eye of his mind. This is also described by Lord Kapila Dev in the third canto of Bhagavatam, the description of someone about to leave their body and then who actually does leave the body. The whole life, all the events of their life pass before their eyes, the eye of the mind, in a split second. So, what will be on our mind when we're about to give up this body? What will be the movie we see of our whole life flashing before our eyes? In this way, we can appreciate Lord Chaitanya reviewing Madhavendra Puri's service. Mm, none other than Sri Nityananda Prabhu and associate devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Madhavendra Puri was so fortunate that Krishna personally appeared before him on the plea of delivering milk. 3 times the Lord gave orders to Madhavendra Puri in dreams. First time, dig me out. I'm the Gopal deity. Dig me out from the bush. Second time, the Gopal deity said, all the massive amounts of water poured on me in the deity installation ceremony have not cooled my body. Please go to Jagannath Puri, bring back some sandalwood. Third time, after Madhavendra Puri secured the sandalwood pulp in Jagannath Puri and was making his way back to Vrindavan to Govardhan Hill to apply the sandalwood upon the body of Gopal. Gopal appeared to him again and said, actually, you're now in Ramuna in front of the Gopinath deity. Use the sandalwood pulp for the body of Gopinath, and that'll be the same as putting the sandalwood on me in Vrindavan, so far away. As you know, this is Krishna reciprocating with Madhavendra Puri in yet another way. I don't want my devotee going through such trouble carrying the heavy load, about 45 kilos of sandalwood, all the way to Govardhan Hill through territories infested with robbers. Let him put it on the body of Gopinath there in Ramuna. And that's the same as putting it on me. So here you see, yes, Krishna just think about what his devotees are going through. And he intervenes in his own way. Lord Chaitanya continues, being obliged because of the loving affairs of Madhavendra Puri, Lord Krishna himself appeared as the Gopal deity, and accepting his service, he liberated the whole world. On account of Madhavendra Puri, Lord Gopinath stole the pot of sweet rice. Thus he became famous as Chira Chara, the thief who stole the sweet rice. Why did he do it? For his devotee. Madhavendra Puri smeared the sandalwood pulp over the body of Gopinath, and in this way he was overpowered with love of Godhead. So then Lord Chaitanya describes how the Gopal deity didn't want Madhavendra Puri taking any more risks, go through any more ordeals. And so in a dream, he told Madhavendra Puri, put the sandalwood paste on the Gopinath deity where you are there. And although I'm thousands of miles away, I'll feel the cooling. So Mahaprabhu says, the Lord is very merciful and attached to his devotees. You hear that? Attached to his devotees. So when Gopinath was covered with sandalwood pulp, Madhavendra Puri's labor became successful. Our efforts are only successful when Krishna and the spiritual master are pleased with us. And nothing compares to that pleasure. We want a certificate from Krishna. This devotee has sacrificed in his life for me. Why should we think this is strange? In material life, people get certificates all the time. You slaved for the corporation or the government for X amount of years. Here's your certificate of recognition. But we want such a certificate from Krishna that we've sacrificed in our life for his pleasure. So when you get an opportunity to sacrifice for Krishna, know that it is a special opportunity. to attract the attention of Krishna. Now, I particularly think about this verse here. I think about all the verses, but right at this moment, I'm thinking about this verse. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed the standard of Madhavendra Puri's intense love before Nityananda Prabhu for judgment. Oh, if our service can only be presented by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Nityananda for Nityananda's judgment. You know the bhajan by Narottam Das Thakur. Akabe Tai Chand Karuna Hoibe. Samsara Vashna Mora Kabe Tucha Habe. When I get the mercy of Lord Nityananda, all my material desires will become so insignificant. Like if a speck of dust lands on your shoulder, that's insignificant. Mahaprabhu told Nityananda, all his loving activities are uncommon. Indeed, one is struck with wonder to hear of his activities. I've been reading a book by my dear godbrother Giriraj Maharaj about the history of Prabhupada establishing the Juhu temple. Extraordinary. Most senior devotees know the history, but to see it in detail and you hear it again and again, you see that Srila Prabhupada is out of this world. His appearance and stay amongst us is the appearance of a resident of the spiritual world. Such determination, perseverance. He was leading his naive disciples because they were imports into India, mostly from America, some from the UK. They didn't know anything about India. And so Prabhupada had to teach them everything and review everything they did. And here they are making real estate deals for land and construction. So, such an ordeal Prabhupada went through to make the deal for the land that the Juhu temple is now on. And at the peak of the whole campaign, his own disciples, his leading disciples, decided this land is worthless. We're going through so much trouble. We can't take it anymore. We'll cancel the deal. Can you imagine? So then Prabhupada, he was in Ahmedabad and he, you could say, he intuited that his leading disciples were going to cancel the deal because they just couldn't go through with the ordeal anymore. When you read the book, you'll see the ordeal. It is, you think you've done some intense surrender. So he thought they're going to give back, they're going to cancel the contract. He had that premonition. The only person free that he could send on the train to Mumbai was Vishaka Devi Dasi. He sent her with the message on the train to Mumbai, don't cancel the contract. But she got there, it was too late. They'd already done it. And besides, they're thinking, this is back in the intense macho days of ISKCON. She's a woman. She says she's bearing a message from Prabhupada. We don't have another reason why we don't have to listen. First of all, this whole land deal is just too much. Some were even thinking, some of the leaders were thinking, Prabhupada's getting old. He's really stubborn about this real estate deal for this worthless land that's causing us so much trouble. They were thinking like that. And then Vishaka Devi Dasi arrives with the message from Prabhupada, don't cancel. They're already in the midst of canceling it, and no woman was going to stop them. So in this way, the deal was canceled. And it's a long story how Prabhupada had to save the day. So just as Mahaprabhu was telling Nityananda about Madhavendra Puri, one is struck with wonder to hear of his activities. Similarly, hearing of Srila Prabhupada's intense love for Krishna manifest in endeavor, manifest in activities, we're amazed. Let's hear the purport. When the living entity feels spiritual separation from Krishna, Krishna Viraha, he has achieved the prime success of life. When one becomes disinterested in material things, he is simply experiencing the other side of attraction for material things. However, feeling separation from Krishna and engaging in the service of the Lord to fulfill his mission constitute the best example of love of Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to point out this intense love of Krishna exhibited by Madhavendra Puri. All Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees later followed in the footsteps of Madhavendra Puri, serving the Lord without personal considerations. We want more than to become just disinterested in material affairs. Our program is not simply material renunciation. Oh, the material world fried me out. It's a very disturbing place. That feeling cannot be the core of your bhakti. The core of your bhakti should be developing attachment for Krishna, which happens by attachment to devotional service. It's true that when you talk to new persons, newcomers, they often have this idea that bhakti is all about not doing this, not doing that, giving up this, giving up that, because with their material senses, they can't detect the presence of attachment for Krishna, attachment for Krishna's service. The devotees have to show them this by the devotee's action. Then the newcomers detect there's something else going on. It's not all about just giving things up, it's about taking on the supreme reality, Krishna's service. This is one reason amongst many why the association with devotees is so important. If those devotees are dedicated to Krishna's service, their presence and activities allow newcomers to detect that there is a spiritual dimension, a spiritual reality. They can do that just by observing the activities of the devotees, associating with them, mixing with them. Lord Chaitanya goes on describing the activities of Madhavendra Puri. All those activities were done without any personal consideration. So perhaps you're visualizing a Madhavendra Puri struggling to do so many labors, but no, he's feeling transcendental pleasure. I'm doing this for my worshipful Lord. To a materialist, it looks like Madhavendra Puri, or even just devotees like us. It looks like, where's their pleasure? Where's their enjoyment? They don't understand the labor of love, how the transcendental pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotee is sufficient. A materialist can't see that. One scenario comes to my mind from the 1970s when devotees in the USA were distributing a, an ocean of books at airports throughout the USA. And I remember sometimes at these big airports like Los Angeles, Atlanta, where thousands of persons are streaming through every moment, there would be a line of book distributors, like 15 book distributors stretched out over the terminal. And as thousands of people are rushing by, these 15 distributors would be stopping this one, stopping that one. So I remember one Sankirtan devotee told me how salesmen, because professional salesmen, they're always traveling from city to city, selling whatever it is they have or are representing. So salesmen would just stop. They are rushed through the terminal and just watch 15 devotees spanning the whole width of the terminal. My father, he would have to travel for his work. And he would tell me, yeah, I've seen them at the airport, the attack squad. But the salesmen, sometimes they would just stop and watch with their mouth wide open. And they would say things like, I know sales. Look, I've been at this for 40 years. In my whole lifetime of sales, I've never seen anything like this. A wall of you guys stretched out across the terminal, and you're actually selling these books, and no one can pronounce the name of the book. Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. I've never seen anything like this in the history of sales. Sometimes the salesman would even go up to the devotees and say, "Here's my business card. You need a job? Come work for me." If you can do this for these religious books, hey man, come work for me. You'll make big money. You're selling strange religious books so successfully. If you sell my products, oh my goodness, you'll be here. Take my business card. Give me a call, will you? The devotees are living on transcendental pleasure of the Lord and his devotee. So Lord Chaitanya goes on to explain that Madhavendra Puri was not at all anxious during the long journey to Vrindavan. He was not afraid. His only enjoyment was carrying the load of sandalwood to Vrindavan for Gopal. So Lord Chaitanya explains this is the natural result of intense love of Godhead. The devotee does not consider personal inconveniences or impediments. In all circumstances, he wants to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, it is natural for those who have developed intense love of Krishna not to care for personal inconvenience and impediments. Such devotees are simply determined to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his representative, the spiritual master. In all circumstances, even amidst the greatest dangers, they undeviatingly carry on with the greatest determination. This definitely proves the intense love of the servitor. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Tate Nukampam Susamikshamana, those who seriously desire to get free from the clutches of material existence, who have developed intense love for Krishna, are worthy candidates for going back home, back to Godhead. An intense lover of Krishna does not care for any number of material discomforts, scarcity, impediments, or unhappiness. It is said that when one sees apparent unhappiness or distress in a perfect Vaishnav, it is not at all unhappiness for him. Rather, it is transcendental bliss. In the Shikshashtaka, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also instructed, Ashlishya va pararitam panashtumam. The intense lover of Krishna is never deviated from his service, despite all difficulties and impediments brought before him. I like this phrase, the intense lover of Krishna. I guess you noticed. Intense love for Krishna. This is what we all want, but we're looking for it in the material world. You can just see yourself looking here, looking there. Can you give me intense love? Please give me intense love. Please love me intensely. But the tiny jivatma, the tiny spirit soul, doesn't have the capacity. We don't care though. We're so love starved. Please give me intense love. Please love me intensely. And we want to love intensely, but it can't happen on the material platform because the material platform is all about false ego, material bodies, material minds, and there's no Krishna in the center. Bhakti yoga means, yes, there is intense love. Be an intense lover by focusing on Krishna and Krishna's service. And in that way, you can effectively love everyone. This is a lesson that may take some time for us to realize. Bhakti yoga is about how to love everyone. So, as I often point out, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spirit souls having a human experience. And so we have to deal with our human side in such a way that we are progressive. Being progressive means gradually to understand how to love. Bhakti yoga is all about love. But first, we have to realize we don't know what love is. We really don't know how to love. Therefore, we need patience and determination on the path of the progressive development of love. Now, just because, let me caution you, just because pure love seems so far beyond us doesn't mean we should therefore be callous toward others. Well, Prabhu's, there's no point in my trying to care for you or be sensitive toward you because anyway, we all know that pure love is something else. So I'm therefore justified in mistreating you or being insensitive or being uncaring. Part of our progress in getting back to pure love is showing that we know how to deal with devotees and indeed how to deal with all living entities. It's a twofold process. loving Krishna and loving all living entities. You can't chop off one side. Well, I'm just going to focus on Krishna. But if you're actually focused on Krishna, you're focused on all Krishna's parts and parcels. Or I'm just going to focus on the living entities. But how can you do that without going through the source of all the living entities, the hub? So bhakti is so extraordinary in that you learn how to love the complete whole, which includes all the parts. That may take some time, but it's the only way to go for being truly effective in your life. Mhm. So the Gopal deity wanted to show Madhavendra Puri's intense love. That's why the Gopal deity asked him, go to Puri, thousands of miles away, and get some sandalwood. The Lord is eager to broadcast the qualities of his devotee, and the devotee is eager to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a reciprocation, a two-way street. In spite of all the great labor, Madhavendra Puri was very pleased. He didn't take all the difficulties very seriously at all. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out, any difficulties incurred during our service to Krishna are actually pleasantries. How can that be so? Well, even in material life, persons are motivated to go through austerities and inconveniences for the sake of a family member, for the sake of a nation. That means you discount all the difficulties for the sake of a higher cause. But as we know, when it comes to material sacrifice, the sacrificer is not satisfied, nor is the person you're sacrificing for satisfied. This is the bitter irony of material existence. Material service doesn't satisfy you or the person you're serving. But in bhakti, all you want is that Krishna is satisfied by your service. Krishna's representative is satisfied by your service. Now, Mahaprabhu says that the Gopal deity wanted to test the intense love of Madhavendra Puri. Now, you might be thinking, test, look, I've got enough in my life. I don't need Krishna testing me. Every day is a test, just trying to get from point A to point B. Just like here I am in Melbourne, locked down, hoping to fly out on Wednesday. One never knows. And I'm thinking, oh, such austerity. When actually I'm very nicely situated at the house of Bhagavad Gita and Sevamrita. But still, how dare my travel plans be impeded? How dare this world do this to me? I've got places to go, people to see. It's me, you know. Why am I being impeded? My plans for serving Krishna. So I could really see how headstrong we are in terms of having our plans, even for serving Krishna. So I had to chill myself out. Just calm down, Swami. Look, you're not the supreme controller. Yes, you want to get on the plane so you can do your service in New Zealand, but the world is what it is. And Krishna knows you're trying your best. So just chant Hare Krishna, finish reading Giraj Maharaj's 700-page history of Juhu, which you won't do when you get to New Zealand. Be honest. You're going to get so busy. Uh, WhatsApp messages coming every moment of the day. By the way, New Zealanders and Australians, you may notice that my WhatsApp responses, unless they're about managemental details, have become slower and slower. I'm trying to wean myself and wean you all off of WhatsApp in terms of contacting me. I know it's the cool thing, it's a second nature. Dash off a WhatsApp message. "Ooh, Mirage, how are you?" "I'm doing this, I'm doing that." But guess what, gang? I get this from all over the world. So unless there is some important practical detail, will probably find that I'm starting to not answer, or if I do answer, it'll be after 1 week. So you all can help me in that you don't load me up with WhatsApp messages unnecessarily, even though I know you're wanting to express your devotion and aspirations in serving Krishna. You can wait till I get there, or yes, we can really be old fashioned again and you can send me an email to which I generally answer in 2 or 3 weeks. So grant me that benediction, please. You don't know that I get WhatsApped from New Zealand, Australia, USA, UK, South Africa, India. You're thinking, oh, it's just me sending a WhatsApp message. It's me and Guru Dave. I'm watching Sureshri laughing. So yes, I appreciate the communication, but you want me to do some other things, don't you? You want me to try to write another book, which I keep delaying? Yes, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Chandaneshwar is still waiting for me to start doing podcasts. The COVID wave has just disrupted our plans that we made. So many things I can be doing. So have mercy on me in terms of WhatsApp. And now many of you have switched to Signal. So I'm getting it on WhatsApp. I'm getting it on Signal. I don't check Signal, by the way. I'm trying to get off of WhatsApp itself. Anyway, these are the austerities. So managemental and practical affairs. Those of you doing such activities in which I need to know something about. Okay. Just like Nandiswar Prabhu is doing some service at New Gupta Vraj, and he sent me one WhatsApp photo of his wife doing some hammering on the cottage there. And he asked me, well, what color should the paint be? And those kind of messages, of course, they're okay. Just think twice, please. I beg you. All right. Mahaprabhu continues about Madhavendra Puri. Such behavior exhibited in loving service between the devotee and the devotee's lovable object, Sri Krishna, is transcendental. It is not possible for a common man to understand. Common men do not even have the capacity. Believe it or not, devotional service is very confidential. You shouldn't be doing it. But because of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you have activities to perform that will allow you to conquer Krishna with love. All right, we're going to stop here because we're getting to the part which I'll save for future class. Lord Chaitanya reading the famous verse of Madhavendra Puri. Havaraj Goswami says that verse is just like the moon. It has spread illumination all over the world. It's a very confidential verse about the pinnacle of bhakti as presented by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya will give a preamble. He's going to warm you up. Prepare your ears before he reveals this jewel. Everything done in bhakti is with such art, science, and culture. You just don't say, here is the most confidential verse. No, you build the audience's anticipation. You're going to see how Havaraj Goswami does that. The epitome, the perfect exemplar of timing, literary skill, bhakti skill, how to say something and when, how to give the pearl rather than just toss the pearl out. Here it is. No, how to magnify the appreciation of the pearl before you give it. Bhakti is all about personalism in the perfect way. Anyway, we'll get into that next time. For now, we'll ask if you have any questions.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. This is Dvija Pitambar Das. Just wanted to thank you for the nice class. And my question is, you mentioned about how our efforts are considered successful when Krishna and spiritual master are pleased. And so I wanted to ask, how do we know when our efforts are pleasing to our spiritual master and Krishna? How does that certification of recognition look like? Thank you.
You can always ask, and there is within the heart, there is also the deity. As we advance in bhakti, we can get verification from the deity, from the spiritual master, from the Lord in the heart. We have we want to please you with our endeavors. At the same time, we don't want to bother you by asking or giving a report of what we're up to. Do we assume we are pleasing you if we're properly engaged? Well, in the case of the person who's asking the question, you do see me quite often, and you can always ask. Sometimes I get these messages that, Gurudev, I just saw you yesterday and we had a discussion, but I forgot to mention this and that and the other, or I was feeling too shy to ask this. Believe it or not, I get WhatsApp messages like that. Not very good time management, is it? Next question. We get glimpses of the Lord or the Maha Mantra sometimes in our dreams. How does one sustain that sort of experience in the long run and remain in that consciousness? This is why what we do when we're awake is very important. You may not be able to control your dreams at night, but you can certainly put more endeavor during the day to make everything Krishna centered. Dreams of Krishna, the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, the Maha Mantra are not ordinary. Sometimes those dreams are very clear and sometimes they're mixed with so many things. But every once in a while, you may notice you get a very strikingly clear vision at night. So those kind of experiences are very special. Look at Madhavendra Puri. We just heard 3 times the Gopal deity appeared to him in a dream. We just have to be careful because at night our our mind can be filled with so many impressions from so many lifetimes, all jumbled up together like in a spin dryer. But when we have some clarity of vision in a dream, we should know that's very special. Just like Madhavendra Puri, his visions of Gopal were very clear and emphatic. Anything else? Thank you, Aradhana, for your message. So, no one else has any questions? Oh, how can we develop the mood of intense sacrifice for Krishna and want our endeavors to be successful for our spiritual master's pleasure? But at the same time, develop understanding that we are not the supreme controller of the results. COVID is a great teacher of patience, isn't it? Of course, you in New Zealand at this point in time, at least, are not so disturbed by COVID restrictions. But still, in terms of the whole world, the COVID phenomenon is a great teacher of patience, humility in dealing with something that's always lingering outside of the control of human beings. Yet our devotional service is going on. By having the chance to serve Krishna in any situation, you naturally develop patience and determination. Otherwise, you can't go on. This material world means impediment. The material body means impediment. So we're praying to Krishna that our service can be of such quality that it goes on in any circumstance. We like that benediction. The body is going to provide us with nothing but problems. Sooner or later, you'll see that our mind provides us with problems. It seems so uncontrollable at times. And the material world is in of itself problematic. Yet here we are trying to render service to Krishna for Krishna's pleasure and for the satisfaction of Krishna's devotee. Can you please explain further on the point, loving Krishna and at the same time loving its energy? Because I find it difficult to follow when we say Krishna is complete and loving Krishna is complete. Then how should we show our love to Krishna's energy, non devotees? We show our love to Krishna's parts and parcels who are non devotees by giving them an opportunity to engage in Krishna's service. As far as devotees and our showing love to them, Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Instruction, Sri Upadeshamrita, presents the six loving exchanges: giving prasad, receiving prasad, revealing the mind about how to execute bhakti, having the mind revealed to you, giving gifts, receiving gifts. These are the authorized methods of loving exchanges between devotees. Take it straight from Rupa Goswami. Don't think, oh, what's the big deal giving prasad? We got prasad every day. Serving prasad is so affected by the consciousness of the person serving. So, those of you who are serving prasad to devotees and to guests, remember that it's a loving exchange. Someone's asking about deity worship at home. There is a difference between deity worship at home and when done authentically at the temple. I like the way Srila Prabhupada defined the difference. Some devotees who were living right across the street from the Los Angeles temple were not going to the temple program because they had their own deities in their house, in their apartment. So Srila Prabhupada wrote them. I know because I was filing all his letters from him and to him when I was in Los Angeles. Prabhupada wrote them that what's the point in our having purchased these apartment buildings right across the street from the temple? What's the point if you're not going to go to the temple? As far as your deity worship at home, if you are worshiping your home deities to the same standard as the archana, the deity worship in the temple, then okay. Now, how many householders at home are doing what, 7 artis a day and changing clothes twice a day and all the offerings? And no, even in India, such would be very rare. So the archana, the deity worship in the temple, is special because all the procedures are followed as the Shastra describes. And therefore, Krishna's presence is more vivid. Now, we can't just generalize and say anyone who has a householder, any householder who has his own deities, it's just a deficient experience. Everything depends on the quality of the devotee. What happened when, of course, he's a liberated soul, eternally liberated? Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the bhajan Shuddha Bhakata Charanarenu, he describes that when he's performing arti, he sees his whole house turn into the spiritual world. So if you're like that, but I know that there are householders who don't live close to where there's a center or temple with deities, and they have their such householders have their shalagram shilas and their home deities. If you have Gaur Nitai deities, that's the best because they're pleased mainly by chanting, dancing, kirtan. Just like at the Bhakti Lounge, they have the Panchatattva who are pleased by kirtan mostly. So you may have deities in your home, but just recognize what they really like. They like a home atmosphere saturated with Krishna Katha, Krishna Kirtan. They don't simply like sitting on your shelf and no transcendental sound vibration emanating throughout the house. But, oh, we have, see them? They're on the shelf there. In fact, we imported this altar from India. It's beautiful, isn't it? Well, do you read before them? Do you chant before them? Do you offer them kirtan? Oh, no, no, but look at the beautiful altar. Hare Krishna. Last question, then I have to go. We hear of Madhavendra Puri fleeing for the sake of not being known as a recipient of the Lord's mercy. How much do we respond to our name or service being poorly portrayed by others and gaining a poor reputation? Okay. Naturally, a devotee is always trying to improve his or her service. And so you try to take the presentations of poor reputation, you try to take that to heart, then "Well, maybe I can improve." Take it as feedback. Sometimes it's due to misunderstanding. We can't rule that out. And then you have to humbly swallow the misunderstanding and not get enraged about it. We're living in Kali Yuga, and Kali Yuga means emotion in terms of personal dealings. We do try to keep that at a minimum. We don't want to be trigger happy in dealing with devotees, quick on the draw like cowboys in the Wild West. So, if in the devotee community we feel that our name or our devotional service is being poorly portrayed, why not discuss it? Think about it. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about the misunderstanding. Sometimes there is quite something you can do. So think about it. All right. It's been a pleasure being with you all, and I hope to see you in person. Those of you in New Zealand, let us see. Those of you in Melbourne, I'm here, but you can't see me due to the lockdown. The 2 weeks or so of being cooped up seems to have helped my ankle. Otherwise, I would just not rest it. Even though my sister, who's a very knowledgeable physical therapist, has told me, just stop putting so much weight on your ankle. So I need to go for a walk every day. I want to go outside. She said, well, you can go outside, but why do you have to walk if you go outside? But I'm accustomed to doing what I want to do. But yes, I have stayed off my ankle just using a cross trainer, elliptical trainer exercise machine here at Bhagavad Gita's, which doesn't involve putting weight on the ankle. But in that way, I still get some exercise. I'm getting to know Bhagavad Gita's two boys very well. 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. Their screaming is becoming music to my ears. I'm getting to see firsthand the nectar of family life. uh, remember little 3-year-old Kanai screaming over and over again, I want elephant ride. I want elephant ride. Screaming that to his father. So now whenever I see him, I imitate him. I want elephant ride. I want elephant ride. He doesn't know what to make of that. He's trying to figure it out because he doesn't know. He's just 3 years old. He doesn't understand. I'm teasing him. He's just looking at me like, what's going on here? So that's what's going on. Besides lots of chanting Hare Krishna, lots of reading the books, emails, GBC, online conferences. That's what's going on. All right. I thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.